Today I'm speaking with Enya Daly. Enya's an actor who's gone through the NIDA program and ShowFit's musical theatre program and is currently working as a puppeteer and performer and singer, really doing it all in the show Spot. I'm Chris Endrey and this is your 30-minute call. Enya, I wanted to start off by asking you what it's like being, I guess, sort of an early career professional actor, because you came out of ShowFit and then NIDA just a couple of years ago, and you've been doing some, I think you've done 3 professional plays and some TV work, is that right?
Yeah, a little. I'm just kind of at the end of my second year out, so it's been a wild ride since graduating, really. I guess I'm adjusting to the pace of it all because I went from high school into full-time musical theatre training into a 3-year bachelor in acting. And, you know, it's really kind of go. And the beauty, I think, in training is that you've got the next thing lined up for you. Mm-hmm. And at the start of an acting degree, you just know for 3 years you're going to be focusing on training and craft, and you've got a show lined up and stuff like that. And then you graduate and you got to start making your own opportunities. So I think the main adjustment for me has been getting used to the pace of the industry and just knowing that things might feel a little bit slower to begin with. But I think at the start of your career, it's really about laying the groundwork and creating relationships. And that's been a big part of what I've been doing as well, because I'm originally from Melbourne, but I'm based in Sydney now.
Mm-hmm. What does that materially look like? Because, I guess, if you've gone straight from high school into what are quite intensive acting courses, and as you say, they've got that pace where you always have, rehearsals and, upskilling, I guess, to do, and then you're suddenly thrust into the professional landscape. It must also just be hard making decisions. Like, it doesn't sound like, you've had time to yourself as an adult yet. Is that fair to say?
Well, I did manage to pop over to Europe for a few months last year, so that was a nice little break and gave me a moment to catch my breath. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you're right there. I definitely did a lot of my growing up when I was in drama school, so I suppose that made it particularly intense as well. So many firsts as an adult were happening at the same time that I was training. I moved out of home for the first time when I was 19 and moved to a different state where I knew no one. So it was pretty intense and tricky, but I'm really, really grateful to have great friends in Sydney, and the people I trained with became my family very quickly, as you can imagine, in such an intense environment.
Yeah. But what is that? How about in terms of what you then want to do? Because obviously as an artist, you have to make a lot of choice, or you get to make a lot of choices about the types of things that you want to do. But at the same time, I guess in acting, it must be, is it fair to say that it's always a struggle to find different work and confusing and ever-changing landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I just try and diversify as much as possible in terms of skill set. So, I'd be happy working on stage, on screen, like in musical theatre, in voiceover, and I'm just kind of trying to create those relationships in order to be able to do that at the moment. Yeah, I think it is really tricky, and you need to be able to offer lots of different things in order to make sure that you're employed consistently enough to make a living, like when it comes down to it.
Does it feel like Sydney's the best place to do that in Australia? Is that why you're there?
Yeah, I think at the moment, for me, Sydney is the right place to be. And even looking at kind of main stage theatre companies, their 2020 releases for next year, I think Sydney has probably the best saturation of great independent theatre companies, and then a few really fantastic main stage theatre companies that are doing plays next year. I know Melbourne is a great hub as well, but just looking at 2020 launches for next year, it seems that they're doing a lot more experimental work at places like the Malthouse next year, and there's a lot of small casts work I noticed for Malthouse shows next year and things like that. So it
fewer gigs.
Seems like at the moment Sydney kind of is offering the most opportunities to me, and I suppose as well it's where my network is. I mean, that's one great thing that I got out of drama school, and I'm really grateful to have trained at NIDA for that reason. You're just surrounded by designers and directors and writers, and so you kind of graduate in a great position because you know other people at a similar part of their career. And so I've gotten a lot of work that way since graduating, just by, being able to work with friends, essentially.
Well, that's great. Having that cohort must be a really important part of that experience. Do you? I'm interested. You said you look at the 2020 seasons and see what's coming up. Is that sort of is that something that everyone would do that's in your shoes? Like have a look at what the landscape is and constantly applying.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Maybe it changes as you kind of progress through your career and people, I don't know who you are a little bit more. They come to you. But I think like you have to be hungry in those first few years and kind of keep your ear to the ground. And I know like as soon as a season launch comes out, I'm kind of on the website looking at what's already been cast, what might have an opening and things like that, and figuring out who's working on what show and things like that. I think it's important to just be aware of the environment that you're working in as well, if nothing else, even if there aren't like casting opportunities. It is an exciting time of the year to look at, oh, yes, I definitely want to see that. I'll definitely want to see that as well. Just, as a spectator.
Yeah, look, I can relate. Our program's coming out soon and there's a lot of buzz here about that. Before we get into why we're talking today, how we've intersected, but I want to talk about, like you sound incredibly focused. For how long have you known that you wanted to be a performer?
Since I was about 5.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I still remember the first show I ever saw was a production of Annie. It was the first musical I ever saw, and I think it was probably fortunate that there was a little girl in that show on the stage, because I saw myself in a way and I thought, oh, wow, like I would love to do that. And I've kind of had the bug ever since, and just grew up kind of in singing and acting and dancing training and piano and stuff like that. And I've just always loved it. And I've always been really grateful to have some, be working towards a career that I'm passionate about. Yeah. Yeah,
it's great that you're in it too. Is there a type of personality that you think you notice is a common trait for actors? I guess the stereotype would be extroverts and so on, but do you find that those ring true?
I don't think so. I would definitely class myself as an introvert, actually. I definitely need a lot of solo time to be able to recharge and gather my thoughts and things like that. And I know a lot of actors are kind of the same. Common personality trait. I think actors are often, I mean, this is probably stating the obvious, but quite empathetic people. I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's necessarily...
If not empathetic, then at least compassionate, Yeah, I'd say probably that's a trait that you need as an actor.
Do you think that's because the skill is in, seeing things and then understanding what people are going through and then translating that experience? Is that what the thinking is?
Absolutely. I think it's about acting is often about stepping into another person's shoes and circumstances and being able to believe it. At least that's what acting is for me. I don't, if I'm doing an emotional scene or something like that, I'm not really thinking about like dead puppies or something like that. I'm just kind of trying to believe the circumstances as much as I can, and trying to empathize with that character or that person's plight.
Have you encountered any, I guess in the intensive experience of going through Showfit where you did musical theatre and then NIDA where you did acting, do you encounter like personal hardships on that journey? Like, do you have to sort of I can imagine that through those sorts of intense experiences and the working in close quarters with other people, that sides of yourself that you may not have had to encounter through high school might emerge that you need to then grapple with, or at least reckon with in some way. Did you have that sort of transformative experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was quite naive in some ways. Like when I graduated from high school, I didn't really think about things like gender and the way it impacted my day-to-day life. Growing up so much, I suppose I had my blinkers on a little bit there. But then I really noticed studying musical theatre that female characters were often written to be submissive or second fiddle and things like that to the male characters, or there were just like less great funny parts for women and things like that. And I suppose I found the same thing, like going through drama school, studying plays from the Western theatrical canon. The same thing kind of occurred to me, that women historically have had less of a go on stage than men. And that actually taught me about the world. They say that theatre is like holding a mirror up to society, and that really kind of took the blinkers off for me. And I think I started kind of noticing for the first time what it meant to walk as a woman through the world, and becoming aware of like little microaggressions and things like that, but also like I suppose the amazing parts of being a woman as well. But yeah, I hadn't really thought about myself in relation to gender so much before going to drama school and studying these texts. And then I think I kind of had an awakening through those years of training, where I kind of became passionate about better representation for women on stage and on screen, so that, when audiences are watching theatre or watching a film, they can see themselves represented. Yeah.
Was there anything, just before moving on, I'm just really interested in the experience of what it must be like, because for I guess the people who are listening in that maybe haven't had much engagement with what these intensive schools do, you're sort of spending all day in this atmosphere, creating and being really vulnerable and having to produce things and continuously working on completely different types of works together, and you're dancing and singing and like that. It just must completely change you from entry to exit.
It is so intense. You are creative to the point of exhaustion.
Yeah.
You're like running on mere fumes sometimes, but I think it is, at least for me, it was an amazing way to train. So my average week would be, Monday to Friday, full-time contact hours, or more than full-time really. You'd be there at kind of like 8:30 in the morning, and then on a good day you'd leave at 6, but during production or when you had like an assessment coming up, the school was open until 10. So sometimes people would be staying back until 10 to rehearse. And then, I have heard stories of some of the poor costume designers trying to sneak into bins and storage closets to try and sleep the night, keep working through the night. Right. Yeah, it is super, super intense.
It just sounds fatiguing, if nothing else. Is there a lot of burnout?
Yeah, there is a lot of burnout. Absolutely. I think you have to be really careful to look after yourself during the 3 years. And it's tricky as well, like financially as a student, when you're working those hours, to be able to support yourself. So that's another very real consideration for anyone looking to study at drama school. How are you going to be able to support yourself through those 3 years? And I mean, it's different for everyone, but it's certainly challenging.
I know it's a personal question, but how were you able to manage that? You don't have to answer if you don't want.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky. I went on youth allowance, so I had some government support. I also at NIDA Open, so they trained me up as a teacher when I was actually studying the acting degree. Yeah, so NIDA Open, for people listening in, is essentially a program that anyone can be a part of if you want acting training. It's their open program, so we train kids from the age of 2 up until adults, and we have great adult courses for people with intellectual disabilities and things like that as well. So I was working as an assistant there on the weekends. So some terms I was there 7 days a week for 10 weeks, which was pretty nuts, but that's how I managed to get through it. And, I was very, very lucky to also have supportive parents that, helped me out now and then, so I didn't have to survive on noodles.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good launching in point, because the intensity of that experience and the way that you spend time is a thrashing ground in some senses, but it is also a pretty honest reflection of sometimes what the career can involve. And you're on the road at the moment with Spot.
Yes, Spot the dog. We're in beautiful sunny Cairns today.
You're in sunny Cairns, are you? Yeah, wow. Have you done a show there yet, or did you just arrive?
No, so we have 3 shows tomorrow. But yeah,
3 shows.
The team, sometimes we do 3 a day. The team are just bumping in today, so that means for the actors we kind of get a day off and get to do other things. So yesterday we went snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, that doesn't sound so
pretty
bad.
Amazing. No, not so bad at all.
And what about the show itself? So Spot, how did you come to? I guess you had to audition.
Yeah. So there were 2 auditions that I had to do. My agents just gave me the call, sent through the audition information, and the first audition was great fun. We had to learn some scripts, and then also what I didn't realise would happen, we went into the room and I was presented with a black plastic garbage bag, and it was just the director and one of the producers in the room, and I was asked to make a puppet. And they gave me like 1 or 2 minutes, and they wanted me to figure out how to fashion a puppet out of a plastic bag and how it might move and how it might talk. And so it is
and stressful
actor audition that everyone imagines in their head, of like me rolling around on the ground, like grappling with this black garbage bag, trying to make something out of it. So, I mean, obviously something went right. I got called back to do a second, and that was when I met the puppet for the first time, which was pretty amazing because the puppets do look exactly like they look in Eric Hill's books, but they're just 3-dimensional, and that's the first time I got to play with Spot. Yeah.
And what is it like to bring a character to life that, I mean, presumably you had read Spot books as a child, and everybody is familiar with Spot in one way or another, I think, and suddenly it's your responsibility to inhabit that character. Like, how do you even approach something like that?
Well, I try not to think too much about like the external pressure of what that means to recreate like everyone's favorite childhood hero.
Yeah, there's a lot riding on it.
Just like, yeah, exactly. Like everyone has a version of Spot in their head, what Spot sounds like, how Spot moves. What I did was, I went back and read the books again, and I also got on YouTube and I found like a ton of videos of the animation, and I watched those and listened to how the books were read, how the voices were like narrated and things like that. And that was really the starting point for me. And then I suppose like watching the animations, the ones I watched at least were narrated in a British accent, which just like, you know, that's not really helpful to text. So,
oh, sorry, I just cut out there for a second.
I just tried to think. Oh, I just cut out, did I?
Yeah, the reception's not great. Sorry. Yeah, do you want to move around? Maybe find somewhere? I'm not sure. I've got full bars.
Okay. No worries. It's all right. Let's see. Am I better here?
I think so.
Still bad?
No, that sounds good.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So, sorry, you're saying you found the versions with the British accent?
Yeah, so a lot of the TV adaptations kind of had British accents and things like that, which isn't that helpful in an Australian context. So I had to think about what is the Australian version of Spot, and I think I just kept coming back to the characteristics of, you know, he's a puppy, he's youthful, he's energetic, he's curious, and I just kind of looked at the picture of Spot and started speaking and saying some of the lines from the play, and then altering my voice, and just I suppose that was kind of my process, and I just kind of kept playing until I found a voice that I landed on, really. And then, the puppet itself it's quite big. And
was this your first time working with a puppet like that?
So I did puppetry in drama school, thank God. So when they gave me that garbage bag in the audition, I had done that exercise before, so I wasn't completely thrown. So I trained with an amazing Romanian teacher named Maddie Slabacu, who was kind of like this amazing puppetry master, and she'd bring in like a massive sack of different objects, and she'd just like empty them onto the floor, and she'd say like, make a puppet. So that was something I had done before. But yeah, I was, apart from drama school, pretty new to puppetry, but I'm very lucky to be working with Kayla and Chris, who have a lot of puppetry experience. I mean, Kayla's worked on Warhorse,
wow.
and Chris has like done lots of puppetry as well. And so they were there to kind of, I could look up to them. And also we were working with Sue Wallace, who was our puppet master on the show, and she kind of watched rehearsals and helped us figure out how the puppets move and things like that. And they're tricky to make move because they have a lot of kind of articulation in the head and neck area, but the whole body itself is really stiff. You can't really move the body and bend it and things like that. So it was quite a process to figure out how to make these puppets look alive and look like the characters from the books. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And what about working for kids? It sounds like you got a bit of experience through NIDA Open, but this is your first professional gig working with kids?
Yeah, absolutely. It's my first
I shouldn't make too many assumptions about who your audience is, but I imagine there are a lot of kids out there.
Yeah, you would be surprised. We get a lot of adults chuckling along too, with the excuse of being there to bring their children.
Of course.
Yeah, mainly kids. And you know what? I have just loved that experience. They meet you with like nothing but love. And for a lot of the kids, it's their first time being in a theatre, which I remember my first time, and that was so special and magical for me. I really want to be able to give them that experience as well. And the first time the puppet comes out on stage, there's just screaming and laughter. They're rowdy. I have never worked with such a rowdy audience before, and I have just loved it. It's nice as an actor as well, because often when you're on stage and playing for adults, a bit of that pesky ego voice can come into your head of am I doing a good job? Mm-hmm. Do the audience like me kind of thing? But with kids, they don't even see you. They're just following the story, and they're so kind of enamored by it. And that's a huge relief as an actor, to be on stage and just really be investing in the story. And the show is interactive, so sometimes we ask the kids questions. The play is based on Spot Goes to the Farm, the book, and so the premise of the premise is that Spot is just trying to find all the animals with Helen and Daddy Sam, because all the animals on the farm have disappeared. So the kids are yelling out, "He's behind you," and things like that. And it's been amazing performing for such a warm audience, really.
That's great. I imagine one of the huge differences would be in adults, we're so good at sort of hiding our emotional states and our reactions to things, but kids they just have those unbridled excitement or disappointment or people yelling out stuff. That must that must just make it so much more rewarding. Is that the case?
Absolutely, especially this show is what I didn't quite realise about puppetry before doing this show is it is so physically demanding.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I trained as a dancer growing up, and I don't think that is anywhere near as hard as puppetry.
Right.
I'm on my knees for the whole show because the puppet is earthbound. I can't just lift it up and move it around the stage. Mm-hmm. I'm on my knees and puppeteering with my right hand, and so you do get the tension in the shoulder and the arm and things like that. And sometimes when you've got 2 shows a day and you're doing it every day of the week, your body is tired and things like that, and it can feel I've got to really just pull this out from somewhere. And then you walk out onto the stage and you hear the kids laughing and speaking to you, and that can really lift you. It's very special.
Have you ever seen Randy, the comedian?
Randy, no, I haven't.
He's the purple puppet. He's an Australian comedian. For my take, he's absolutely one of the funniest going around. But I remember I was a comedian for a while, and I remember seeing him from backstage, and I was struck at what an athlete this guy was. To have to do that for he was only doing it for an hour or something, and I was just I say only an hour. Exactly, exactly, just an hour of intense exercise, nothing really. No, but do you have to stretch beforehand?
Oh, yes.
You wake up sore?
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing.
We've got yoga mats and foam rollers and things like that. And like I get kind of semi-regular massages and things like that.
Oh,
It is like being an athlete, puppetry, at least puppeteering this role. And it's a musical as well. So we're singing and we're
great.
dancing with the puppets. And singing, dancing and acting is hard in a human body. But, when you're crouched over a puppet and you're making the puppet move, it's a whole additional element. It's a real challenge, but boy, has it gotten me show fit.
Yeah, I bet. It's good to be able to go around doing work that keeps you fit. Was your Romanian teacher really live, like an incredible mover?
Well, she...
I've asked the question with a no answer.
No, she the time we spent with her, my impression of her was that she'd been doing it for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And so she was more kind of like standing around like the almost like the dance master or something like that, and telling us what to do. And sometimes she would like help us, and she would pick up one of the puppets, and she would like give an example. But no, the class wasn't anywhere near as physical as kind of what we're doing in Spot. Mm-hmm. I suppose as well because it is for kids. That's probably like another reason why the show is so physical, because kids like colour and movement and high energy things.
Oh, it sounds great. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. It's coming to the Canberra Theatre Centre on the 29th and the 30th of November.
Yes.
You can find tickets and the full details of those shows at canberratheatrecentre.com.au. And I wanted to finish up by asking what you're going to be doing next. Do you have to have an eye on to, like, when does this show run until?
Okay, so we are finishing up at the Sydney Opera House on the 22nd of December. Mm-hmm. So it's been a real privilege, getting to work on a contract this length. We started rehearsal on July 15th. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of been my second half of the year. As for next year, I have no idea. I have no idea what is in store. I have my own kind of projects that I'll be dabbling in.
Mm-hmm. Are they projects that you're creating and driving?
Yeah, myself, that have kind of been on the back burner while I've been doing Spot. What
are they?
So I suppose the things I'm interested in are creating new works and giving opportunity to young emerging female writers to create plays, or it doesn't even have to be a play, but like a film and television project or something like that, that are female driven. And so I'll be, trying to get artist grants and things like that in order to kind of extend those opportunities and offer commissions to female writers so that we can get some more excellent female characters out there. So
what's the name of the project if there are any listeners that want to get involved?
Pardon?
What's the name of that project, just in case there are listeners that want to find a way to contact you and put a submission in?
The best way, I don't have like an official website or anything for that at the moment. Mm-hmm. And I kind of need to organise, funding and things like that before I can build websites and things like that. But if they want, they can definitely reach out to me on Instagram. My handle's just enya.daly. That would be the best way to get in touch with me at the moment. And please do. I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts and collaborate.
Tell you what, Enya, it sounds like an exciting life and an exciting horizon too. Thanks so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me on. Can't wait to be in Canberra.
Spot's playing at the Canberra Theatre Centre on the 29th and 30th of November this year, and you can get tickets and full details online at canberratheatrecentre.com.au.